Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to our Sync Show Experts panel. Today we'll be discussing adjusting to unpredictable work environments with 5 experts leading the charge to aggressively pivot for success during COVID-19 and these stay-at-home orders. The shift is forcing all of us to reevaluate how we work, what our customers and clients need, and what success looks like. And today we're going to be talking about all of that. I'm your moderator, Nadine Nocero-Tai, Vice President of Client Services at Sync Show, a lead generation and digital marketing agency serving clients across the U.S. in transportation, manufacturing, and professional service sectors. Let me introduce you to our panelists, and then we can go ahead and get into it. First up, we have Ty Holstrom, Director of Sales and Marketing at ATS Logistics Services. Ty, can you tell us a little bit about your role and about ATS?
Good morning, I'm Ty. Thank you, Nadine. I'm with ATS Logistics. We're a transportation broker based out of St. Cloud, Minnesota. We have a nationwide presence, actually North American-wide presence, and beyond that with our international services across the globe.
Thank you. Next up, we have Matt Baker, Senior Benefits Consultant at DS Benefits Group. Matt, can you tell us a little bit about what DS Benefits does and your role?
Great. Thank you, Nadine. Thank you for having me. Yes, so our firm is DS Benefits Group. We are what we call a human capital company, and we focus in the areas of employee benefits, organizational development, and then HR administration. So throughout this whole process, especially with the COVID-19, we've been able to really help our clients in those 3 areas, whether it's through their benefits programs or through organizational development and HR. So we've done quite a bit with our clients over the past month and a half to help them go through the changes that they're going through and we're all adapting to. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Next on our panel, we have David Llewellyn, General Manager at Warren Rupp, a unit of IDEX. David, can you tell us a little bit about your role and about Warren Rupp?
Sure, yeah. General Manager at Warren Rupp, as you mentioned. Warren Rupp is one of about 45 different business units that's part of the IDEX Corporation. IDEX operates globally. Warren Rupp is a manufacturer and distributor of highly engineered pumping solutions. We supply products into many different industries, and again, those industries are dispersed around the world.
Thank you. Mike Carter, Executive Vice President at Strategic Resource Management, Inc. Mike, share with us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Our firm is a consulting firm that works with banks and credit unions, and we also have a packaging practice. Packaging practice has to do with a lot of manufacturers and food producers who are moving product in various packaging, cardboard, plastics, that sort of thing. The primary function of our business is to select vendors and negotiate with them based on benchmarks that we hold in the industry in hopes of driving down costs for our clients. So our expertise is in the negotiation and the pricing that we give them.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Jonathan Cicatelli.
Good morning.
Vice President of Tax Services at Mead & Moore. Good morning.
How is everyone today? First of all, I am Vice President in charge of the Tax Services Group for Mead & Moore. We are a regional public accounting firm based in Cleveland, Ohio. We do have offices throughout the U.S. as well as in England. We primarily serve the middle market, providing a test and tax consulting and financial structuring for companies. So I'm happy to be with you here today.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. So we have a multitude of essential businesses on the panel today, or essential adjacent businesses, in which and of itself is simply fantastic for you to give your time to us today. And during this pandemic, we know that you're quite busy. So that said, can I get a raise of hands? How many of you are still in the office or at your facilities? Thank you, David. So we have one of our 5 panelists, I guess to include myself here, one of 6 that are still in the facilities, and everyone else is working fully or partially remote, I should assume. Okay. Well, before we get in on that, David, I would love to hear a little bit from you just to share what's going on at your facilities, how you're managing that, being an essential business and serving, especially I know in the hand sanitizer side, you have a large demand and need and for business to be up and running effectively. We just love to hear how that's going.
Sure. Yeah, I think what we specifically this business, we were able to react and respond to the impact that coronavirus had, at least within our work environment, relatively quickly. Given that we're part of the IDEX organization, we had businesses underneath that umbrella that began, they were impacted earlier in the year. We've got operations in China and Southeast Asia that started experiencing challenges, obviously much earlier than we saw in the U.S., as well as operations in Italy. So we moved pretty quickly with travel restrictions as well as remote working, and had almost 85 to 90% of our staff in the office off-site by the second week of March. And then we quickly pivoted our production operations to go to a split shift, just to really help reduce the overall density of people that we had within the operation. Tied to that, and as you said, we have seen increased demand through a number of different applications, primarily on the chemical side, associated with cleaners, sanitizers, soaps, and other materials and compounds that are used in some of the preventative requirements that have come out of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you for sharing that. Pivot was a word that came up quite a bit here, and pivot we all have. So it sounds like because of being such a global operation, you've been able to really see this influx and this flow as COVID-19 has moved into the U.S. and how wonderful to be able to not only pivot for your customers, but pivot for yourself as an organization to really feel how to help, how to shift quickly, and how to react and then become proactive. So thank you. For the rest of you who are fully remote, I would love to just take some time and go through feedback from each of you to say, how has your transition to remote work been for yourself, for your teams, your organizations? What have you learned? Are there any best practices, any concerns? Ty, why don't we start with you?
So we haven't really been doing the work from home model prior to last month or March. So we reacted swiftly to distribute the workforce and create distances in our offices. Right now we have about half of our team is working remotely. Early on in the transition, we knew that we needed to adapt some SOP and train our managers on how to manage remotely and to manage remote workers. So our training team jumped in to help out with that. Everybody's been great. Our HR team, training, IT, they all jumped in to help make this a smooth and successful transition.
That's fantastic. What an interesting development for your training team and for HR, all of a sudden to say, let me onboard this organization to completely working from home, which is, I'm sure, something you're all experiencing in one way or another.
Yes, everybody's been great to work with. Our management team jumped right in. The employees have been understanding of the the normal headaches that come along with that transition, and it's been going well.
Great. Matt, how are things for you at DS Benefits?
Things have been pretty well. Just like Ty was saying, we have never been a work from home organization. We feel we're a client-facing organization, and our team is all gathered in one spot, and it's great because we're very collaborative. So when we were looking at moving into the transition to working from home, our leadership team certainly had a lot to do with looking at different technologies such as Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and other platforms to try to make that work. And I think part of our success was we were able to foresee that we needed to start working from home, start working on the technology early, and we actually started splitting off the team into half work from home one day and the other half work the other, so we could start getting that feel and then come back to the office as an organization to see what worked, what didn't, make any changes that needed to be done. And our team adapted very quickly to the changes, and we were able to start working from home sooner than we thought. And it's been very successful. I will say it's hard when you're a culture that is all together all the time, and now people are separated in their own homes. We are doing a lot of fun things, such as trying to do virtual lunches or kind of social hours with the team, just so everybody can get together. Because what we're finding is we all work with specific people more than others, and we don't want to lose sight or lose contact with those other team members that we may not communicate with on a day-to-day basis. So we're trying to create ways to always stay connected as an organization, even though we're so much further apart now. But the transition has gone over quite smoothly. A few kinks to work out, but we're staying in front of our clients using Zoom, using conference calls, and like I said, everybody's adapted pretty quickly with it. And it was a lot of success with the leadership team to make that happen with the work up to being able to work remote.
Fantastic. Thank you. There's some nice little takeaways there, Matt, on ways to bridge that gap among team members that you don't specifically work with on a day-to-day basis. Really nice. David, while you shared some great intel about how your team and your global organization has shifted as the virus has developed, you also have team members who are now remote. How has that been going, and what is that like between the in-facilities team members versus your remote team members?
Yeah, I think initially there was some challenges, and to be quite honest, I think there's still challenges today, as some of the other participants have mentioned. It's identifying and coming up with ways where the teams can obviously stay collaborative, at the same time stay informed and connected with one another. So we've done a lot of the same things, introduce we call them short little water cooler discussions, where it's 15 minutes scheduled kind of throughout the day, where you can come in and talk about the TV shows that you're binge watching during the quarantine period. People are sharing recipes. We've introduced a newsletter that we're sharing and publishing throughout the organization for those people that are obviously in the facility and those that are out. We have about 100 or so people that are still in the operations, combined with our production and a handful of office support folks, as well as about 65 to 70 people that are working remotely. So there's a lot of content, a lot of information that we're trying to share across the organization, but keeping the team well informed, keeping them connected, making sure that we're communicating, whether it's business updates, change in practices and procedures, which I think do continue to evolve. That communication piece has become really, really critical.
Thank you. Matt, yes.
I couldn't agree with David more in terms of the communication piece. Communicate. I feel like when we're all working from home, you cannot over communicate. So that's a great point you brought up, David.
Fantastic. Thank you. Agreed. Mike, how have you been communicating with your team, and have you been previously remote, or are you just remote now?
I ran my own consulting business for 10 years remote. So it's a pretty natural thing for me. And the office itself, we only have about a third of our people in our Memphis headquarters. And I think up until this, we felt like, well, we're Southerners for one thing, so we talk a lot and we like to see one another, and Memphis is a great place to eat. So, we probably missed that interaction. It's not that the rest of y'all aren't friendly, it's just we're overly friendly down here in the Delta. So, but it honestly wasn't that big of a change for us. Even for the executive staff, which is located in Memphis, we meet every morning on Teams, and I report to CEO, and he and I were talking one day, and in his conclusion and mine were, we actually communicate more now. We're an entrepreneurial outfit, so we tend to all go our own ways, and we've all got our own responsibilities. We have, if it's a problem, we fix it. We don't run up the ladder to get it fixed. The beauty of a small firm like this. But consequently, when you're in the office, you're flying past each other, or you're on airplanes, which most of us spend far too much time on. So in many ways, this has worked out better. And one funny anecdote from this is it's a family company, and the founder, who's dad of the CEO, Brad told me, that's our CEO. Brad said that Curtis had already called him and said, what are we doing with all that office space up in Clark Tower? And you know, when Brad and I talked, I said, I don't think you buy any more office space. I think you know, the exec team needs to see each other. We need to work together. There's things we have to talk about. We probably don't want to talk about on team, but let everybody else do their own thing and save. I think I saw the statistic was even if you work a person remotely, half the time you save $11,000 per employee. Now, for us, that's, you know, that's 40 people or something. But for companies that have hundreds, that's a significant number, particularly if you can outsource them. And I'll say this and I'll stop. The feeling I get from some old school management, and it's not that I'm a kid, is that, well, if they're home, we don't know if they're really working. And there's a consultant in HR that's written on this, and he said, well, how do you know they're working at work? And the U.S. labor research shows that we all work about 8.8 hours a day, and we spend 4.3 of those doing things that are not related to our jobs. So I figure if I knock off at lunch at home, I'm already ahead of the game for the firm.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that and really interesting data points. Jonathan, as you transition to work from home, how has it been going for you, for your organization, for Meeting and More?
Sure. Let me just clarify. We are considered an essential business, but we have moved out remotely except for required personnel only. Our offices are technically still open, but only those that, you know, really need to be there in order to further what we do. We are fortunate in that about 6 years ago, we fully integrated our IT software. So assurance, tax, payroll, billing, everything speaks to each other. It didn't do that previously. We were not fully even remote capture on all of our client data and the like. So we had old files moving around, if you can believe that. So ironically, when our governor went to a shelter in place, it was rather quite easy. It was more of just not going into the office tomorrow anymore, and I'm working from home. Most of us are set up here at home, similar to exactly how we are set up in the office. As many of you indicated, we use Microsoft Teams. We have instant chat back and forth. We do a lot of virtual check-ins. Once a week, we meet as an entire group. And the comment has come up that I see some of the people more now than I ever did when we were physically in the office. Certainly from a process standpoint, it has brought to light some of the ways we were doing things before and our ability to do those now going forward, that we've fully embraced our technology platform that we've had in front of us. It does give you a moment of pause where you can actually step back and take a look and say, why were we doing it this way? It's actually more efficient to be doing things the way that we're doing them now, because we've been put in a corner, if you will, that we have to figure a different way to do things. So it's been rather eye-opening on a lot of different levels.
That's fantastic to share. And in order to have it be so successful, like you mentioned, integrating your IT 6 years ago, you know, and now seeing that just reap such benefit, how fantastic. I'm really loving to hear all of this feedback. And I'll share from SyncShow's standpoint. I've been remote now in my role for about 6 months. So my day-to-day isn't all that different, but yes, I do talk to my team members more now that the rest of them are home and outside of the office. So it's very interesting. We are using Zoom, we are using Slack. So it's so interesting to hear that everyone here, I believe, is on Teams. Is that correct? Yeah. So we are the lone Slack platform user over at SyncShow here. So we've talked about this proactivity. We've talked about how, you know, Jonathan, you said it, when you're forced to make this change, you see all of these eye-opening results, and everyone has sort of shared that to some degree of what it means for your business moving forward. And at times like these, we see new businesses and new models and new ways of doing business open up. You know, where are you all seeing these opportunities? A funny little anecdote that I heard from a podcast on a dog walk was that during the polio epidemic is when the board game Candyland was developed, you know, something that we've all grown up playing and we've all played, and, you know, children will continue to play, but it was invented in a hospital by a polio patient who said, there are all these children who can't go outside. How can we give them some sort of exploration to do something else? And, you know, that's just one sort of cute example of something that came out of a pandemic and was creatively developed and that touches all of our lives in some way or another. What's happening in your business now that you're seeing as a shift that may stay once this resolves itself? Ty, I'd love to hear what's happening with logistics specifically.
Sure. I think a shift, we have the logistics industry, like some of the other participants have said, has been a highly in-person interaction. We're right in our offices, we're right on top of each other, talking to each other, leaning on each other. So we've definitely had a shift in the last 30 to 60 days here of taking that more online, which we were well suited to do on account of that's how we were already interacting with our customers. So that's been good. It's forced us to catch up in some ways, and I think that will have some lasting effects with ATS. From a customer perspective, I think that they're relying on us more for communication of what's going on in the transportation industry. We have a very good pulse of emerging trends, and they have been fast moving in terms of how many trucks are available, pricing, that kind of stuff. A lot of the transportation industry is based off of spot prices. So they're keeping in touch with us, and we're keeping in touch with them, keeping them apprised of what's going on as capacity develops or detracts.
Absolutely. And are you seeing, with that spot pricing, it's probably more crucial now than ever with the way that goods are moving or not moving, and likely requires a heavier hand from a consultation standpoint?
A lot of communication. We're overstressing communication. Our reps are probably tired of hearing it from us of pick up the phone and talk to them, and talk over what's going on in their world, because everyone has a story to tell in these days for sure. Leaning heavy on those relationships, and there's quite a bit of recovery freight going on as well right now. So that's a very important part of the keeping the supply chain moving, and why we're leaning on heavily as an essential industry in troubling times.
Thank you. Matt, what are you seeing from your customers' needs, ways that your business is evolving during this time in a way that you maybe expected or didn't expect?
Sure. So we all knew that we were going to be essential to our clients, especially knowing that we handle workforce in terms of the benefits. What's going to happen when we lay people off or furlough them? How's that going to impact things from an HR standpoint? How do we deal with these issues in the right way and communicate the best with our clients? And then the same with organizational development. So we knew we were going to be important, and we were getting a lot of calls, and we are still getting a lot of calls, but it was the same as how it was important for us to always stay in contact with our clients, just even to ask them how we were doing or how they were doing, what they needed help with, what did they foresee in the future, what kind of questions did they have. And we like to stay in our lane. We're very good at what we do, and we have business partners who are in those other lanes, just like Jonathan, accounting firms and law firms and banks and those type of things. And what we found ourselves doing was saying, we are more of a resource now. It's not time to sell. It is time to be a resource for our clients and for our community, and even those businesses that are in our community that are not part of our organization, because we all need to come out of this on the other side ahead of the game. And so what we've done from our sales team is we just started looking at things of how can we help our employees in the best way possible. And we've done that through actually making videos. We've taken some of those questions and we've saying, okay, let's highlight some of our own team members for HR and talk about HR issues. Let's look outside of things in terms of the banking world, or from a legal standpoint. How do we deal with employees who are collecting unemployment and maybe making more money on unemployment than coming back to work? What are the repercussions of bringing those people back? So we've created videos that have become a real resource, not just for our clients, but for people and other businesses in the community. And we've received a lot of questions and a lot of great feedback on those. And I think that's one thing that's come out of this for us that I think we will continue to do and to drive moving forward with our clients and with our community partners. And I think the one piece that's now coming into play is when we start talking about now the state of Ohio is going to start reopening. How do we bring these people back to work? How do we keep it a safe environment? How do we keep things moving forward and getting the right people back? What happens if people don't want to come back? Are we looking to hire new people? So how do we figure out how to talk with those individuals? How do you figure out the right way to hire? What's important to us now in this transition back into the office? So we are continuing to drive these videos, and we thought it'd just be educational while we're here doing this now. But what we're realizing is these are important pieces that companies can then take with them and play whenever they need and ask that feedback throughout the course of the year. So I think we're going to continue to drive these videos as educational pieces for our clients and for the community at large.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. You know, as a data junkie who looks at the website data for each of our industries, something that is very clear is that in the professional service space, website visits are increasing at this time because people are looking to, as you mentioned, you know, human resource and employee benefits, accounting, finance, loans, feedback around how can I absorb more information, better my business, learn at this time. Whereas what we're seeing in the transportation and manufacturing sectors are visits are lower because business is pivoting and people are seeing a bit of uncertainty, but the website traffic that is there is highly engaged, eager to connect, which Ty, you also said, you know, it's about getting on the phone, making those formalized next steps. So it's really interesting how we're seeing all of these things shift and needs really develop around either immediate contact and discussion and strong engagement to repeat visits and heavy traffic around let me absorb this expert information. David, what are you seeing in your business? We've talked a little bit about, you know, some of the cleaning agents, the sanitizers, but where are you seeing the future and where are you seeing this puck move?
We're you know, up until recently, a large portion of our business was in the energy sector as well, specifically oil and gas. So we supply a lot of products and services to the Gulf Coast, as well as some international oil and gas markets, and obviously with the significant decline in production related to you know, obviously the reduced demand, given that none of us are getting in our cars, none of us are flying on planes. That has forced us to look a little bit away from those particular accounts and those particular markets. We're still supporting them. A lot of the industry is still up and running, play more in the midstream space rather than at the wellhead. But you know, with that, again, you know, comes a pivot to other areas. So you know, chemical industry continues to be fairly strong for us, especially in some of the, again, cleaning, sanitization efforts, but also food and beverage and food security is obviously key through these times. You know, we're seeing greater demand you know, across the globe, and a lot of our distributors are expanding and trying to have a you know, increased level of business and support in those areas. And you know, along the lines that we've heard from some of the other participants, you know, our first step was initially around being able to support our distribution, support our end users, whether that's with, you know, application information, maintenance programs, service parts suggestions, just to make sure that those operations are continuing unimpeded. You know, downtime in any of these operations has a critical impact on the overall fight. So anything that we can do to help support some of those critical industries, whether that's service and maintenance programs, spare parts promotions, or, you know, any general tools and guidance that we can give them to keep their downtime to a minimum is key to them right now, and that's where our focus has been.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, that maintenance key is really something we're hearing very broad brush for people in their homes, how to repair your refrigerator, all the way to, you know, how do you handle this in a manufacturing facility to ensure that downtime is not increased at this time. Mike, I'm really curious to share or to hear what you have to share on this, because your business touches a lot of this, you know, the tentacles reach wide and far and impact everything everyone else is seeing. So what are the trends that you're seeing? What are the ways that you're recommending clients prepare, or any new opportunities coming from this?
Well, we early on did a survey of our clients. Not so much on the packaging side. We were in deep with a lot of them. Many of them are working 16-hour days now. It's the antithesis of what you see in other parts. And on that front, we were, unlike our normal business, we were looking for face masks for them. They were struggling to keep up with demand. On the financial institution side, it was pretty remarkable. We found on the survey that 2/3 of financial institutions had 50% or more of their staff working remotely. And I think after this is all over, particularly, well, in most verticals, we'll all be looking for ways to cut costs. And when you start to look, all joking aside about office space, but when you start to look at things like office space and the cost of putting somebody in an office or in a cube, it won't take long, I don't think, for the smarter organizations to shift away from that and put as many people remote as they possibly can. Particularly as you've heard with this group, it's working. People are getting stuff done. Communication is good. And some jobs require you to be there, but there's a whole lot of jobs in America that don't. The other thing is we fly a lot. I bet the top 5 executives fly 750,000 miles a year. And I know that in a lot of businesses, including ours, after employees, travel is one of the highest costs we have. And what we found out and what our clients have found out is actually this remote thing is less disruptive. I mean, nobody flies anywhere that it doesn't take an extra day of your time, not counting the recovery from the trip. Now we simply go Zoom or go Teams, and we work through the data that we need for them, and we present that way back. Nobody seems to think it's odd. We have an operation in England that focuses on business process improvements. We've been importing that now. Before you would have had to bring the British guy over, stand him up in front of the board, but now the clients don't have any other way to consume the information. I think that'll stick in a lot of places. The global market may become even more global. So I'm not buying any airline stock. I'm not buying any commercial real estate stock. Well, I'm not buying any stock right now, but those would be 2 that I think will come out different for us.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you. Jonathan, I mentioned your blog post before, but we've been seeing a lot of content. There's a lot changing in this environment. What are you seeing for your clients? What are you all talking about as you prepare accordingly?
I mean, when you think about this pandemic, I mean, it's disruptive to everyone in our business. It couldn't have come at the worst time during our, peak filing season, peak busy season. Everything that we and our clients had scheduled or were anticipating was literally thrown upside down overnight. So as we moved through that process, we quickly realized that processes or approaches, if you will, that were well rooted from our industry back in the 70s and 80s are really not as necessary. I think Mike indicated, being in front of our clients all the time, we felt was what was absolutely needed on a physical sense. But in reality, through Zoom, through Teams, we found ourselves presenting financial statements remotely when we'd never done that before. We found ourselves interacting with them remotely and gathering data, which we'd always done before remotely. And it begged the larger question, why are we always physically in front of you, taking up space? And a lot of that occurred too because clients were shutting down space and we're looking to restrict access. So it was a natural reach out for them and for us to say, we really don't want to be there and we don't think you want us there. So it's kind of changed your look on that. Secondarily for me, it's funny, I'm a 30-year tax professional that probably in the last 2 months has spent more time in the SBA and the lending world than I've ever imagined. So it causes you a moment to pause and look at yourself in the light or the eyes of your client and say, who am I and what am I doing for them? And in this case, it's what I've talked about a lot over the years. I'm their business advisor. It's not just taxes. It's not just audit. It's what they need. And over the last 6 weeks, Nadine, as you said, I've been blogging a lot. It's primarily been around the SBA lending programs and what are the advantages, disadvantages. How do the tax credits, the payroll interplay with that? What's the right answer? And it's all coming about because while we have deferral of tax due dates, it's creating a bit of a tsunami for our clients. 7/15 now for them means I got to pay the balance due of last year, the first 2 quarters of this year, and cash flow is extremely critical to them because obviously their businesses are slowing or have been impacted. So because of that, we've moved into a whole different phase of how we interact with them and what we're providing to them. And for me, it's doing outreach like this. It's doing those blogs. We're not selling. I'm providing information to whom's out there in the space that wants to see it and utilize it. That's the way that we're acting right now.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. I want to go ahead and ask each of you one more question before we wrap up our session today. And I would love to hear if you had a perfect prospect or distributor or end user in front of you today, what would be the bar none advice you would share with them during this time to advise them around what success might look like? Ty, why don't we start with you?
The perfect advice. I don't know if I have the perfect advice. I'd ask them if they have advice for me, maybe. So I think that we're all going to emerge from this stronger, so our concentration internally has been, we know that some of our markets that we touch as a transportation company are affected. Overall, we're doing all right. We're still hiring people. We're going to grow, and we have been growing. Even during the last couple of months, we've grown our load count. So we've been doing okay, but we know that there's going to be times when we're experiencing some of the slow times that come along with this, and we're concentrating on upgrading our systems and our capabilities so that we emerge from this stronger. So I think if everybody kind of takes that mentality throughout this, we're all going to come out of this stronger, and as a nation, and certainly even right down to a company level and personally. So that's the advice that I would give everybody that's dealing with this crisis.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And, I think that focus on the long game is what's crucial. Matt, what would you share with a prospect?
From what we've learned throughout this whole process and what we've seen with our clients that we've always figured to be true, but now we see it being true, is how much our clients appreciate and care about their employees. And throughout this whole process, whether it's been needing to downsize or to make those difficult decisions, what we've learned is there is no perfect way to do it, but there is some things that have come out of this that we can formally help our clients with, such as checklists and different things to think about. Because I think as we move forward and we all start going back from remote work to the office, we're going to have to make those changes with our clients and move at the same pace. And it might be a little slower now moving back, especially with the concern and still the social distancing and what we're going to do for the next 6 months or until there's a vaccine created for this. So how do we prepare our clients in case we have to go back to a work at home situation? If we have to go through this again, what are we going to do and how are we going to help them through those things? And I think we take everything that we have learned from our clients and put them into our best practices, not just for our own firm, but for them as a resource. Again, I think going through this, you realize how important the employees are and how much the leadership teams really do care about those employees and understand that when they make a difficult decision, it not only affects that employee, but it affects their families. And they really take that into heart. And I think being that resource and not selling, but just being that that business advisor, like Jonathan mentioned earlier, is so important. And I think that's going to be the big change is let's move slower. Let's get this done right. And let's really make this so it doesn't impact the employee so quickly where they don't know what's going on. And I think we're going to take some of those checklists and things of that nature and help bring those out to work with our clients on, and also for other community partners that I've talked about.
Fantastic. Thank you. David, as you're talking to prospects, distributors, what is the business advice you'd like to share?
Just, I think to build off a little bit of what Matt had pointed out, every decision that we've made over the last 6-7 weeks has been around the health and safety of our employees. And, whether that's our remote teams or whether that's our operational folks, looking through the situation through that lens has been really critical for us. As we communicate, whether it's new initiatives or changes to our operations, using health and safety as the key driver behind those decisions has been extremely critical. And I would definitely pass that message on to whether it was distribution or end users. Specifically to distribution, I think one other key message is, again, 95% of our business is through distribution. I would challenge them to just think about and get creative about different ways to reach out and engage to end users. Obviously, that landscape has changed pretty significantly, and having that interaction, having that ability to go to whether it's job sites, different facilities, different plants, provide application and product solutions. Obviously, very few businesses are allowing that kind of access these days. So being able to reach them in different ways, we've gone through a lot of learning just over the last number of weeks, and partnering with some distributors who are a little bit more creative in terms of their approach to that engagement, to that reach to end users, has proved beneficial. So just really that message around, what's a different way to get your message out there.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mike, what would you share?
On the packaging practice side, I would share with those businesses that it's time to broaden your relationship to cost savings beyond just the packaging that you consume. You need to be looking at back office processes and ways to get off paper and introduce very simple types of AI, like robotic process automation, very simple, not expensive, quick ROI. On the financial institution side, there are 3 things I would tell them. I'd tell them we weren't kidding about digital. It is important. And get off the banner of trying to keep branches open. We've done just fine without branches. Grandma found a way to get her check in the account. She can be taught how to use remote deposit. And lastly, your behavior during this has had a huge impact on your brand. I think that probably one of the most damning things that came out was this interception of the stimulus checks to pay overdrawn accounts. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand it's business, but Adam Smith wrote 2 books, and the first one was on morals and ethics, and the second one was on the invisible hand of the economy. And I've actually left my bank because they were doing that. Went to one down the street that's forgiving fees, allowing people to forget payments, canceling. I can't remember. There's 6 things they're doing, and one of them was let people have their stimulus check, even if they are overdrawn. I couldn't stress more with people that your brand speaks volumes during something like this. And you will not recover quickly, though your CEO thinks you will. You will not recover quickly from bad behavior during this time. So those are the things I would tell the banks and credit.
Thank you. Thank you. That's fantastic. And a great example of people will not forget how you made them feel, good or bad, during this time. And, that's something that crosses all industries, all business, personal, professional. Thank you. Last but not least, Jonathan, the advice that you would give or share with a prospect or current customer or client at this time?
The big overriding theme for me is everything that it really encompasses what we've been talking today. You need to adapt to your new environment. And that environment today is going to be different tomorrow and next week. When we get into phase 2 of this virus in the fall, if we don't have a vaccine, we're probably going to find ourselves in a very similar situation. I mean, Obviously, the majority of our clients are in the middle market. They are used to being adaptive. They are used to being able to make change on the quick. There are many industries, though, and there are many organizations who have found it very difficult to get to where they're even at right now. And if they're not going to continue to adapt to a more digital, if they're not going to continue to adapt as to how they approach business, treat their customers, and give back to their communities and market space, they may not find themselves around in another 10 years to experience the next big thing that hits us. My overriding theme with my staff and everything is, this is not like a bad snowstorm. It doesn't just go away after a week of digging out, right? The ramifications of it are long-lived, not just on the economic impact, but to what we've been talking about, how we do business, how we protect the safety and the health of our employees, and where do we go from here in adapting our technology and what we do to the needs of the market space, given what we've gone through. So to me, that's the conversations that I'm having, and we got to stay flexible and we got to continue to evolve, because what I'm talking about today probably won't be the same next week, quite honestly.
100%. There's the underlying message through all of this. It's changing rapidly. It's changing quickly. And I love that. It's not a snowstorm that we're all just going to recover from in a week. And I think that has been a very bizarre personal shift for everyone to say this is here and we have to deal with it. And it's not just something that's going to melt when the sun comes back out. This has been fantastic. Thank you all. It's so interesting to hear each of your personal feedback, cross-industry, cross-geographics. Everyone here is located in a different place, and to hear that we're all leading with some of the same best practices and concerned about some of the same issues or ways that we can turn those into opportunities through transparency, through planning for the long game, through using technology and digitizing our businesses for the better. So I so much appreciate your time today. This wraps up our Sync Show Experts panel. So thank you again for each of your time and your insights. It's so greatly appreciated. If you're viewing this on YouTube, we'd link up all of our panelists' LinkedIn profiles as well as their company website. So if you'd like to reach out to them, learn more about who they are, what they do, you can reach out to them directly through their LinkedIn or reaching out to their company website. So please don't hesitate. I'm sure they would love to hear from you. Along those lines, leave us a comment with your own key takeaways or questions on things that we've discussed, and we'll happily get back to you and put that into the right hands for your answer. And if you like what you see, please subscribe on YouTube to the Sync Show channel and let us know what other topics you'd be interested on hearing from other experts or these experts on specifically. We'd love to keep this conversation going. So thank you all so much again for your time today, and take care.
Thanks, Nadine.
I thank you.
Thank you.